Maya, a 9-year-old girl with a fierce sense of right and wrong, had always believed in protecting the people she loved, no matter the cost. So, on what should have been the happiest day of her father's life, Maya did something that changed everything. She had watched, heart-pounding, as her dad, Daniel, stood ready to marry Sophia, a woman whose charm concealed dangerous secrets. With a steadying breath and unshakable resolve, Maya stepped forward, determined to reveal a truth that no one else could see. Her bold move brought the wedding to an immediate halt, leaving everyone stunned. What had Maya seen that others had missed? How had her courage led to such a drastic decision? And what would happen to her family now that everything had changed? The late afternoon sunlight filtered through the leaves, casting a warm, golden glow over the small backyard. Maya sat on the porch steps, her fingers tracing the worn edges of a locket she wore around her neck. It was her mother's locket, a delicate silver heart with a photo inside, one side showing her mother's smiling face, the other empty. Her dad, Daniel, had told her to put her own picture there someday so they could both keep it close to their hearts. For Maya, memories of her mother were both faint and precious. She'd been only 5 when her mother passed away, but her father made sure she never forgot her. Every week he would tell her a new story, a cherished memory, a little something to keep her mother's presence alive. Maya clung to these stories, the way her dad's eyes softened when he talked about her mom, the way he laughed as if she were still there, filling their lives with warmth. Today, though, Maya wasn't thinking about her mother. Her thoughts kept drifting to Sophia, her father's fiancée, and the strange feeling that had settled in her stomach every time she saw her. Sophia had been in their lives for almost a year now, ever since her father met her at a local gallery opening. She was a tall, elegant woman with sharp eyes and a perfect smile. In front of her father, Sophia was sweet and thoughtful, always saying the right thing, always making him laugh. But when they were alone, Maya noticed something different, something that made her feel like she was looking at a stranger. "Hey, Peanut," her dad's voice interrupted her thoughts, pulling her back to the present. She looked up to see him standing in the doorway, smiling as he held up a tray with 2 glasses of lemonade. "Care to join me for a drink?" Maya nodded, scooting over to make room for him on the porch steps. Daniel sat down beside her, handing her a glass, his face glowing with a quiet happiness that made her chest tighten. She wanted to be happy for him. She did. He hadn't smiled this much in years, and she could tell that Sophia had brought a lightness into his life. But deep down, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, sipping their lemonade and watching the birds flit through the trees. Finally, Daniel cleared his throat, glancing at her with a curious smile. "So, what do you think of Sophia?" he asked, his tone casual but with a hint of hope. Maya hesitated, swirling her lemonade as she tried to find the right words. "She's nice," she replied, her voice quiet. Daniel raised an eyebrow, chuckling. "Just nice?" Maya managed a small smile, not wanting to ruin his mood. "Well, she makes you happy, Daddy, and that's important." He reached over, ruffling her hair. "You're important too, Maya. I want you to be happy with this, with us." Maya nodded, biting her lip. She didn't want to hurt him, didn't want to cast any doubts, but the feeling gnawing at her wouldn't go away. There was something about Sophia that just didn't feel right, something that lurked beneath her charming smile. Later that evening, while her dad was in the shower, Maya sat in the living room, flipping through one of her mom's old photo albums. Her father kept these albums in perfect condition, a tribute to the life they'd once had. She loved looking through them, feeling a little closer to her mother each time. The soft hum of voices broke her concentration. She looked up to see Sophia, standing in the hallway with her phone pressed to her ear. Her voice was low, hurried, and Maya couldn't help but strain to hear. "No, it's too soon. I told you, he's not ready yet," Sophia whispered, glancing toward the closed bathroom door. Her tone was sharp, nothing like the warm voice she used around her dad. "Yes, I'm handling it. But I need more time, understand?" Maya's heart skipped a beat. She felt a chill run down her spine as she watched Sophia's expression shift from frustration to cold calculation. She'd never seen Sophia like this before, so focused and intense, like someone planning something hidden and important. Sophia noticed her standing there and quickly ended the call, her face softening into a bright smile. "Oh, Maya, I didn't see you there," she said, her tone suddenly warm and friendly. "Did you need something, sweetie?" Maya forced herself to shake her head, feeling her stomach twist. "No, I was just looking at pictures of Mum." Sophia's smile flickered slightly, her gaze darting toward the album in Maya's lap. "Oh, that's lovely," she said, her voice tight. "I'm sure she was a wonderful woman." Maya nodded, not trusting herself to say anything else. She could feel her pulse racing, a strange mix of fear and suspicion bubbling up inside her. She watched as Sophia walked back toward the kitchen, her heels clicking softly on the floor, each step echoing through the quiet house. That night, as she lay in bed, Maya couldn't shake the feeling that Sophia was hiding something. She replayed the conversation in her mind, trying to understand what Sophia could have meant by "he's not ready yet" and "I need more time." Who had she been talking to? And why was she acting so differently when her dad wasn't around? The next day, Maya went through her usual routine, but her mind was consumed by questions. After school, she went to her best friend Emma's house. Emma was a good listener, and Maya thought that maybe talking to her might help her sort out her feelings. They sat in Emma's room, surrounded by posters of pop stars and stacks of books, and Maya told her everything about the conversation she'd overheard, about the strange ways Sophia acted when her dad wasn't around, and the uneasy feeling she couldn't shake. Emma's eyes widened as she listened, her face a mix of curiosity and concern. "That's weird," she said, leaning in closer. "It sounds like she's planning something. Do you think she could be lying to your dad?" Maya bit her lip, nodding slowly. "I don't know, but it feels like she's hiding something. And I don't know how to tell Daddy. He's so happy, and I don't want to make him worry if I'm wrong." Emma thought for a moment, then reached over to squeeze Maya's hand. "Maybe you don't have to tell him right away. Maybe you could, I don't know, keep an eye on her? Try to figure out what she's really up to?" Maya nodded, a spark of determination lighting up in her chest. Emma was right. She couldn't just sit back and do nothing. She needed to know the truth, to find out if her instincts were right. She'd be careful, she decided. She'd watch, listen, and maybe, just maybe, she'd find the proof she needed. In the days that followed, Maya kept a close eye on Sophia, observing her every move with a quiet, watchful gaze. She noticed little things, like the way Sophia's smile seemed to slip when her dad wasn't looking, or the way she avoided questions about her own family. But Maya knew she needed something concrete, something undeniable, to bring to her father. One evening, Maya saw her chance. Sophia had left her tablet on the kitchen counter, the screen unlocked. Maya glanced around, making sure her dad was still upstairs, then carefully picked it up. Her hands trembled as she opened the emails, scrolling through messages with subject lines about investment plans and financial transfers. Her heart pounded as she came across one message in particular, an email from someone named JK, that read, "Once Daniel commits to the investment, we'll be able to access the funds within a week. Your commission will be processed as soon as the transaction clears." Maya's breath caught in her throat. It was exactly what she'd feared. Sophia wasn't here for her father's love, she was here for his money. And if her dad went through with this investment, he could lose everything. She quickly snapped a photo of the email with her phone, then placed the tablet back on the counter, her mind racing. She had the proof now, the undeniable evidence that Sophia was manipulating her dad. But how would she show him? How could she make him believe her without breaking his heart? As she slipped quietly back to her room, clutching her phone tightly, Maya felt a surge of determination. She would find a way to show him the truth, no matter what it took. Her dad's happiness was important, but his safety and trust mattered more. And she would protect him, even if he didn't see the danger himself. That night, as she lay in bed with the photograph of the email saved securely on her phone, Maya's mind raced with questions. She'd finally found proof that Sophia wasn't who she seemed, but how could she make her dad see it? He trusted Sophia so completely. She could feel the burden of the truth pressing down on her, the weight of the responsibility she now carried. The next morning, she decided to be extra cautious. She'd seen how easily Sophia could manipulate situations, turning things around with a soft smile or a warm laugh. If she showed her dad the email right away, Sophia might twist it, convincing him that Maya had misunderstood or misinterpreted it. Maya had to be sure, absolutely sure, before she said anything. She'd need more evidence, more undeniable proof that even Sophia couldn't talk her way out of. After school, Maya went to Emma's house again. They sat in Emma's room, and Maya showed her the photo of the email, watching as Emma's eyes grew wide. "Oh my gosh, Maya, this is serious," Emma whispered, glancing over her shoulder as if Sophia might somehow hear them from afar. "She's definitely trying to trick your dad. You have to tell him." Maya bit her lip, looking down at her phone. "I want to, but what if he doesn't believe me? What if he thinks I just don't like Sophia because she's not my mum? He's so happy, Emma. Happier than he's been in years." Emma thought for a moment, then nodded slowly. "Okay, so we get more proof. Something that he can't ignore, even if he doesn't want to believe it." She looked at Maya, a spark of determination in her eyes. "We can figure this out together." Maya felt a rush of relief and gratitude for her friend's support. "Thanks, Emma. I don't know what I'd do without you." Emma grinned, giving Maya's hand a quick squeeze. "That's what friends are for." "So, what's our next move?" Maya thought for a moment, her mind racing. Maybe we can find out more about this investment Sophia's pushing him into. She's been asking him to go to these business meetings with her lately. She says it's just so he can understand the opportunity better, but I don't trust it." Emma nodded thoughtfully. "Well, if she's got something planned for one of these meetings, we need to find a way to be there too. Maybe you can go with him." Maya shook her head. "No way. She'd never let me come. But maybe I could follow them." Emma's eyes widened. "Like, spy on them?" Maya nodded, feeling a thrill of nervous excitement. "Exactly. If I can find out where they're meeting, I could listen in. Maybe I'll hear something that proves what she's up to." The plan was risky, and Maya knew it, but she couldn't just sit back and watch Sophia manipulate her dad. She had to protect him, even if it meant stepping into uncomfortable territory. The next day, Maya waited patiently for the right opportunity. Her dad had mentioned that he and Sophia would be going to a business dinner that evening, a meeting where Sophia wanted him to meet some key people. Maya's stomach twisted with worry, but she knew this was her chance. When her dad and Sophia left that evening, she waited a few minutes, giving them time to drive ahead, then grabbed her backpack, threw on her jacket, and slipped out of the house. She pedaled her bike as fast as she could, her heart pounding as she followed the route she'd seen them take before. She kept her distance, staying just close enough to see Sophia's car up ahead, her eyes fixed on the taillights that guided her through the winding streets. Finally, she saw them pull into a small, dimly lit restaurant on the edge of town. She parked her bike a block away, then walked the rest of the distance, staying in the shadows as she approached the restaurant. Peeking through one of the windows, she spotted her dad and Sophia sitting in a corner booth with two other people, a man in a dark suit and a woman with sharp features and a slicked-back ponytail. They were all smiling, laughing, looking like close friends, but Maya could sense that this was no friendly dinner. She took a deep breath, ducking low as she circled around the building, looking for a spot where she could listen without being seen. She found an open window near the back of the restaurant, just above where her dad and Sophia were seated. She crouched down, straining to hear their conversation over the murmur of other diners and the clinking of glasses. "Just need him to sign the papers," Sophia was saying, her voice low and smooth. "Once everything's in place, the money will start flowing, and he'll be none the wiser." The man in the suit chuckled, clinking his glass against Sophia's. "You always did know how to pick your targets, Sophia. This one's a goldmine." Maya's heart pounded as she listened, her breath catching in her throat. She was right. Sophia had been planning this all along, targeting her dad because she knew he was vulnerable, that he'd be easily swayed by her charm. "Just make sure he doesn't get spooked," the woman with the ponytail added, her tone icy. "We don't want him pulling out at the last minute. This kind of deal requires complete trust." "Oh, don't worry," Sophia replied, a smile in her voice. "I have him wrapped around my finger. He'll sign whatever I put in front of him." Maya clenched her fists, anger and fear swirling inside her. She'd heard enough. She couldn't let them do this to her dad. She had to get out of there before they noticed her, before she got caught. She took a shaky step back, then another, her foot accidentally scraping against the gravel. The sound was faint, but it was enough. Inside, Sophia's head snapped up, her eyes narrowing as she glanced around. Maya held her breath, ducking low as she carefully backed away, her heart racing. After a few tense seconds, she turned and bolted, running as fast as she could toward her bike. Once she was a safe distance away, she stopped, leaning against a tree as she caught her breath. She had all the proof she needed now, proof that Sophia was nothing but a fraud, a liar who saw her dad as nothing more than a source of money. But how could she make him believe it? How could she break his heart to protect him? That night, Maya lay awake, staring up at the ceiling, her mind racing with thoughts and plans. She knew her dad wouldn't want to believe her, that he'd be devastated to hear the truth. But there was no other choice. She couldn't let Sophia ruin their lives, couldn't let her father be deceived by someone so cruel. The next morning, she woke up early, her resolve hardening. She went to the kitchen where her dad was making breakfast, his face lighting up when he saw her. "Morning, Peanut," he said, smiling as he flipped a pancake. "You're up early." Maya took a deep breath, steadying herself. "Daddy, can we talk?" Daniel looked at her, sensing the seriousness in her tone. He put down the spatula, turning to face her fully. "Of course, Maya. What's on your mind?" She hesitated, her hands trembling slightly as she tried to find the right words. It's about Sophia. I don't think she's who she says she is." Her father's face fell, confusion flickering in his eyes. "What do you mean?" Maya pulled out her phone, opening the photos she'd taken of the email and placing it in front of him. I found this on her tablet. She's trying to get you to sign something. I think she's planning to take your money, Daddy. She doesn't love you. She's just using you. Daniel stared at the phone, his face pale as he read the email. He looked up at her, hurt and disbelief mingling in his eyes. Maya, are you sure? This is serious. She nodded, her voice barely a whisper. I'm sure. I heard her talking about it last night. She was saying how she has you wrapped around her finger and that you'd sign whatever she put in front of you. She only cares about the money, Daddy, not about us. Daniel's face twisted with pain, his shoulders slumping as he absorbed her words. He reached up, running a hand over his face as he tried to process what he'd just learned. I thought she cared about us. I thought she wanted to be a family. Maya took his hand, squeezing it tightly. I want us to be a family too, Daddy, but not like this. Not with someone who only sees you as a target. For a long time, Daniel was silent, staring down at the email as if seeing his life unravel before his eyes. Finally, he looked up at her, his expression filled with a mixture of gratitude and sadness. Thank you, Maya, he whispered, his voice breaking. Thank you for telling me the truth. Maya hugged him, feeling a wave of relief wash over her. They sat there together, clinging to each other, knowing that while the truth was painful, it was also the only way to protect their family from someone who would have torn them apart. The rest of the morning passed in a haze of heavy silence. After their conversation in the kitchen, Daniel seemed lost in thought, staring out the window or pacing the living room as if he were trying to make sense of everything Maya had told him. Maya watched him from the doorway, her heart aching as she saw the pain on his face, the deep lines of worry and hurt that hadn't been there before. She wanted to comfort him, to tell him that everything would be okay, but she knew that nothing she said could ease the betrayal he must have felt. Sophia had meant so much to him, had brought back a spark he'd lost after her mother passed, and now that hope was tainted, replaced by the sharp sting of deception. Finally, Daniel looked over at her, his gaze steady but sad. Maya, he said softly, motioning for her to join him on the couch. She walked over, sitting beside him, as he took her hands in his. I'm sorry. I should have listened to you sooner. Maya shook her head, squeezing his hands gently. It's okay, Daddy. You couldn't have known. She was really good at pretending. He sighed, rubbing his temples. I guess I wanted to believe in something simple. After everything, I thought, maybe it was possible to find happiness again. His voice broke slightly and Maya felt a lump rise in her throat. You still deserve that, Daddy, she whispered, her eyes shining with emotion. But with someone who really cares about us. He nodded, taking a deep breath as he steadied himself. You're right. And I'll make sure Sophia's out of our lives for good. He paused, glancing down at his hands. But first, I need to confront her. I need to understand why she did this. Maya's heart skipped a beat. She hadn't expected her father to face Sophia so directly. A part of her worried about what Sophia might do, how she might react if she was cornered. But she could see the determination in her father's eyes, the resolve that had replaced the hurt and confusion. He needed closure, and she couldn't deny him that. Do you want me to be there? She asked quietly, feeling a rush of protectiveness. Daniel gave her a small smile, brushing a hand over her cheek. You're so brave, Maya, braver than anyone I know, but I think this is something I need to do alone. Maya nodded, her heart pounding as she thought about what might happen. "Just be careful, okay?" "I will," he promised, pulling her into a tight hug. She buried her face in his shoulder, feeling the familiar warmth and strength that had always made her feel safe. Whatever happened next, she knew they would face it together, as a family. Later that afternoon, Daniel called Sophia, asking her to meet him at a small cafe in town. Maya watched him leave, her heart heavy with worry, but filled with hope that this would be the end of Sophia's influence on their lives. She spent the next hour pacing the house, jumping at every small noise, her mind racing with thoughts of what might be happening at that very moment. Daniel sat at a corner table in the quiet cafe, his hands resting on the polished wood, his mind racing. He felt an unsettling mix of emotions, anger, betrayal, and a lingering sadness that he couldn't quite shake. Sophia had brought something into his life he thought he'd lost forever, and now he was faced with the reality that it had all been a lie. Sophia arrived a few minutes later, striding through the door with her usual grace, her smile as charming as ever. But as soon as she spotted the expression on his face, her own smile faltered, replaced by a flicker of apprehension. "Daniel," she greeted him, her voice soft. "You look troubled. Is everything all right?" He motioned for her to sit down, his gaze fixed on her. "I think you know why I wanted to talk." Sophia sat down slowly, her eyes darting around the cafe, before settling on him. She kept her expression calm, but Daniel could see a flash of uncertainty in her eyes. "I'm not sure I understand," she replied, folding her hands neatly on the table. Daniel took a deep breath, pulling out his phone and placing it in front of her. He opened the photos of the email Maya had shown him and slid the phone across the table, watching her reaction closely. For a moment, Sophia's expression remained neutral, but as she read the email, a subtle tension crept into her posture. Her eyes narrowed slightly, her lips pressing into a thin line as she looked back up at him. "Where did you get this?" she asked, her tone calm but laced with an edge. "That doesn't matter," Daniel replied, his voice steady. "What matters is that you lied to me, Sophia. You pretended to care about me, about Maya, but all you wanted was access to my finances, wasn't it?" Sophia took a deep breath, composing herself before she spoke. "Daniel, you have to understand, it's not as simple as it looks. I was going to tell you eventually. I didn't know how." Daniel felt a surge of anger, his hands clenching into fists on the table. "You didn't know how? Sophia, this wasn't just a little lie. You were trying to manipulate me into signing away my life savings. And for what? A commission? A quick payday?" She sighed, looking down at her hands. "You don't understand, Daniel. I didn't have a choice. I have debts, people I owe. This opportunity, it was my way out, and I thought, maybe if you came into the business with me, we could work together, build something real." Daniel shook his head, a bitter laugh escaping him. "Build something real? Sophia, what we had was never real. It was all just a setup, wasn't it?" Sophia's face twisted, a hint of frustration showing through her controlled facade. "I cared about you, Daniel, I still do, but I have to look out for myself too. Life doesn't hand out second chances." "Maybe not," he replied, his voice hardening. "But it also doesn't excuse using people. I trusted you. Maya trusted you. And now, I don't even know who you are." They sat in silence for a moment, the tension thick between them. Finally, Sophia straightened, her face expressionless. "So, what now?" she asked, her tone clipped. "You're going to leave us alone," Daniel said firmly. "You're going to pack up and walk away from our lives. And if you come near Maya or me again, I'll take this to the authorities. I have enough. Proof to make sure you're held accountable." Sophia's jaw clenched, but she didn't argue. She rose from her seat, casting him one last cold look. "Fine. Have it your way, Daniel, but don't think you'll find anyone else who'll love you the way I did." With that, she turned on her heel and walked out of the cafe, her footsteps fading into the distance. Daniel sat there for a few moments, processing everything that had just happened. He felt a strange mixture of relief and sadness, a sense of closure but also a profound loss. Taking a deep breath, he stood up, feeling a newfound resolve. Sophia had deceived him, but thanks to Maya's courage, he had seen the truth before it was too late. And he knew now that he had something far more valuable than any relationship. He had his daughter, and he would do whatever it took to protect her. When Daniel returned home that evening, he found Maya waiting for him on the porch steps, her eyes wide with worry. He gave her a reassuring smile, sitting down beside her and wrapping an arm around her shoulders. "It's over," he said softly. "She's gone." Maya looked up at him, her eyes filling with relief. Are you okay?" He nodded, his gaze distant, as he thought about the day's events. "I will be, thanks to you. If it hadn't been for you, Maya, I might never have seen who she really was." Maya leaned into him, resting her head on his shoulder. "I just wanted to protect you, Daddy. I didn't want her to hurt us." Daniel hugged her tightly, his heart swelling with gratitude and pride. "You did protect me, Maya, more than you know, and I'm so proud of you, so grateful to have you by my side." They sat there in the quiet of the evening, wrapped in each other's warmth, the last traces of tension fading away as they let the peace of the moment settle over them. For the first time in weeks, Maya felt truly safe, knowing that she and her father had faced the darkness together and come out stronger on the other side. The next few days were spent quietly as Maya and her dad adjusted to the newfound calm in their lives. Daniel threw himself into spending more time with her, making up for the moments they'd lost while he'd been wrapped up in Sophia's schemes. They went on long walks, cooked together, and laughed over old stories, rediscovering the simple joys of being a family. And though there was still an ache in Daniel's heart, a lingering sadness for what he had thought was love, he knew that his daughter's love and loyalty were worth more than anything. She had saved him from making a terrible mistake, and he would never forget that. Each evening, as they sat together watching the sunset, Daniel would glance down at Maya and feel a wave of gratitude wash over him. No matter what challenges lay ahead, he knew they would face them together, side by side, with the strength that came from trusting and protecting each other. In the days that followed, Maya's life settled back into a comforting rhythm. She still felt the lingering effects of the ordeal with Sophia, moments of unease that would surface, whispers of doubt in quiet moments. But she knew that she and her dad were stronger for it. They'd faced a storm together, and now, in the calm that followed, they'd rebuilt a bond that was unbreakable. One Saturday morning, as they were having breakfast, Daniel looked up from his coffee with a thoughtful expression. "Maya, how would you feel about going on a little trip?" he asked, a smile playing on his lips. Maya's eyes lit up. "A trip? Where to?" "Anywhere you want," he replied. "We could go to the mountains, maybe a beach, or even a new city we've never been to. I thought it might be nice to have a change of scenery, a fresh start, just the two of us." Maya considered it, feeling a thrill of excitement at the idea of exploring someplace new with her dad. After everything that had happened, a vacation sounded like exactly what they needed, a chance to leave behind the shadows of the past and focus on making new memories. "Can we go to the mountains?" she asked, her face brightening. Maybe we could hike and see waterfalls like we did when I was little. Daniel grinned. The mountains it is. We'll pack some snacks, rent a cabin, and spend a few days exploring. Just you, me, and nature. They spent the next few days planning the trip, Maya eagerly helping her dad choose the best hiking trails and scenic spots to visit. By the time they set out early one Friday morning, they were both filled with excitement, the weight of recent events finally lifting as they looked forward to the adventure ahead. The drive to the mountains was long, but Maya didn't mind. She and her dad played road trip games, sang along to their favorite songs, and shared snacks as they wound their way through quiet country roads and tall pine forests. The air grew cooler as they climbed higher, and by the time they reached the cabin they'd rented, they could see the first hints of autumn colors, painting the trees. The cabin was cozy and tucked away on the edge of a small lake. It was the perfect spot. Quiet, surrounded by nature, with a porch that overlooked the water. After unpacking their bags and settling in, Maya and her dad took a walk down to the lake, breathing in the fresh, crisp air and marveling at the way the sunlight sparkled on the water's surface. As they walked, Daniel took Maya's hand, his expression thoughtful. "You know, I was thinking, maybe we could start a new tradition. Something just for us." Maya looked up at him, curious. "Like what?" "Well," he said, smiling softly, "how about every year we take a trip together, just the two of us? No matter what's going on, we'll always have that time together. A father-daughter adventure." Maya's heart swelled with happiness. "I'd love that, Daddy. And maybe each year we could go somewhere different." "Exactly," he agreed. "Every year, a new place, a new adventure." They spent the next few days exploring the mountain trails, laughing and telling stories as they climbed rocky paths, crossed wooden bridges, and marveled at the waterfalls that cascaded down into sparkling pools. At night, they'd sit by the fire in the cabin, roasting marshmallows and sharing stories about Maya's mom, keeping her memory alive in the warm glow of the firelight. One evening, as they sat outside on the porch, wrapped in blankets and gazing up at the stars, Daniel reached over and handed Maya a small, neatly wrapped package. "What's this?" she asked, surprised. "Just a little something I thought you might like," he replied, his voice warm. Maya carefully unwrapped the package to find a leather-bound journal, the cover soft and embossed with a delicate floral pattern. She opened it to see that the first page had a small note written in her dad's handwriting. "To my brave girl, Maya, who taught me that true love is about trust and honesty. Let's fill this journal with memories, adventures, and everything that makes us a family. Love, Dad." Maya felt a lump in her throat as she read the note, her eyes misting with tears. She looked up at her dad, her heart full. "Thank you, Daddy. I love it." He wrapped an arm around her, pulling her close. "You're welcome, Peanut. I thought it might be nice for you to have a place to keep all our memories. Maybe even start a little tradition of writing in it together each time we go on one of our trips." Maya nodded, hugging the journal to her chest. She imagined filling its pages with stories of their adventures, the special moments they shared, and the little things that made life beautiful. It felt like a new beginning, a way to hold on to the love and trust that had carried them through the hardest times. As the days passed, Maya and her dad settled into an easy routine. They spent their mornings hiking, their afternoons exploring nearby towns, and their evenings by the fire talking about everything and nothing at all. It was a time of healing, of laughter and quiet moments that mended the wounds left behind by Sophia's betrayal. On their last day in the mountains, Maya and Daniel decided to take one final hike to the highest overlook in the area. The trail was steep, winding through dense forest and across narrow ridges, but the view at the top was worth every step. They stood together, looking out over the vast expanse of mountains and valleys stretching out below them, the colors of autumn painting the landscape in shades of red, orange, and gold. Maya took a deep breath, letting the beauty of the scene fill her with a sense of peace. She reached for her dad's hand, feeling a warmth that was more than just the sun on her skin. It was the warmth of love, of knowing that she had someone by her side who would always protect her, who would always listen, who would always be there. As they made their way back down the mountain, Maya felt a sense of clarity, a realization that stayed with her as they returned to the cabin, packed their bags, and began the drive home. She knew that life wouldn't always be easy, that there would be challenges and hardships in the future. But she also knew that she and her dad would face them together, with the strength they'd found in each other. When they finally pulled into their driveway late that evening, Maya felt a deep sense of gratitude. She looked at their small, familiar house, the porch where she'd sat so many afternoons, the tree in the front yard that her mum had planted years ago. It wasn't just a house, it was a home filled with memories, love, and resilience. As they unpacked and settled back in, Maya couldn't help but feel that they'd left something behind in the mountains, something heavy and dark, a burden they no longer needed to carry. In its place, there was a new lightness, a sense of freedom that filled their lives with possibility. That night, as she lay in bed, Maya opened her new journal, flipping to the first blank page. She picked up a pen, Zrina, hesitating for a moment as she thought about what to write. Finally, she began with a simple line. Today, I learned that family is about trust, and that true strength comes from facing challenges together. She continued writing, filling the page with memories from their trip, the little moments that had made her smile, the conversations that had made her feel closer to her dad. As she wrote, she felt a deep sense of peace, a quiet joy that came from knowing that no matter what lay ahead, she was surrounded by love. In the following weeks, Maya and her dad returned to their everyday lives, but there was a new energy in their home, a sense of happiness and stability that hadn't been there before. Daniel threw himself into his work with a renewed passion, while Maya focused on her school projects and spent her weekends with Emma, sharing stories from their trip and laughing together over inside jokes. One evening, as they were sitting on the porch watching the sunset, Daniel turned to Maya, a smile playing on his lips. "So, where should we go next year?" Maya grinned, her eyes shining with excitement. "Maybe the beach this time? We could collect seashells, build sandcastles, and watch the sunrise over the ocean." "Sounds perfect," he replied, wrapping an arm around her. "One adventure at a time, right?" Maya leaned into him, a feeling of contentment settling over her. "Right." As the sky darkened and the stars began to appear, they sat together in comfortable silence, both of them filled with a quiet certainty that whatever life brought, they would face it together. And with that, Maya knew that they had truly come full circle, not just as a father and daughter, but as a family, bound by love, trust, and the strength they'd found in each other. Understood. Let's keep going with the story as Maya and her dad settle back into their lives. I'll pick up from where we left off, diving deeper into the warm, peaceful days that follow their trip, as well as introducing a few new challenges to bring them closer together. Life returned to a comforting rhythm for Maya and her dad in the weeks following their trip to the mountains. Autumn was settling in, painting the trees in fiery shades of red and gold. The air grew cooler, and the neighborhood was filled with the sounds of rustling leaves and the faint scent of wood smoke drifting from chimneys. It was Maya's favorite time of year, the season when everything felt warm and cozy, a time for family and togetherness. One Sunday afternoon, as they were cleaning up from lunch, Daniel turned to Maya with a smile. "Hey, I have an idea. How about we make this afternoon a movie day?" Maya's face lit up. "Can we watch Mum's favorite old movies?" Daniel nodded, a soft, nostalgic smile crossing his face. "Of course. We'll make popcorn and get a stack of blankets just like we used to." They spent the afternoon curled up on the couch, watching old black-and-white films that Maya's mother had loved. They laughed together at the silly moments, exchanged glances during the dramatic scenes, and even recited a few lines from memory. It was the kind of day that filled Maya with warmth, the kind of day that made her feel as if her mother was there with them, in spirit, if not in person. As the final credits rolled and the room fell into a comfortable silence, Maya turned to her dad, feeling a pang of sadness. "I wish she could be here with us." Daniel wrapped an arm around her shoulders, pulling her close. "I do too, sweetheart. But you know, days like this, they remind me that she's still a part of our lives. She's in the movies we watch, the stories we tell, and the way we take care of each other. That's how we keep her memory alive." Maya nodded, resting her head on his shoulder. She felt the truth of his words, felt the warmth of her mother's presence in every memory, every small thing that made up their lives together. It was a bittersweet comfort, one that made her feel both sad and grateful. That evening, Maya found herself thinking about everything she'd learned in the past few months. The experience with Sophia had been painful, but it had taught her so much about trust, family, and the importance of honesty. She realized that even though it had been difficult, it had brought her and her dad closer, strengthened the bond they shared. A few days later, Maya had the opportunity to put these lessons into practice when she found herself facing a dilemma at school. Her teacher, Ms. Rodriguez, had announced a big group project that would count for a large part of their grade. Maya was excited to work on it, especially because her best friend Emma was in her group. But as the project progressed, Maya began to notice something troubling. One of her group members, a girl named Kayla, wasn't contributing at all. At first, Maya thought Kayla might just be shy or uncertain, so she tried gently encouraging her. "Hey Kayla, do you want to take on the introduction part? I think you'd do a great job with it." Kayla shrugged, barely glancing up from her phone. "I don't know. You guys seem to have it under control. I'll just do whatever." Maya exchanged a glance with Emma, both of them feeling frustrated but unsure of what to say. As the days went by, it became clear that Kayla wasn't going to contribute, no matter how much they tried to involve her. She showed up to every meeting, but she rarely spoke, and she didn't volunteer for any tasks. The project was due in a week, and Maya felt torn. She wanted to do her best, to make sure they got a good grade, but it didn't feel fair that Kayla would get credit for work she hadn't done. She thought back to everything she'd learned about honesty and integrity, and she knew she had to address the issue. But how? That evening, as she helped her dad with dinner, she decided to bring it up. "Daddy, can I ask you something?" Daniel looked over, his face curious. "Of course, Peanut. What's on your mind?" Maya explained the situation with Kayla, how she was struggling to balance being a good friend and being fair. She worried that if she said something to Ms. Rodriguez, it might make Kayla feel bad, but she also didn't think it was right for Kayla to get credit for work she hadn't done. Her dad listened carefully, his expression thoughtful. That's a tough situation, Maya. I understand why you're feeling conflicted. It's never easy to stand up and say something when you know it might hurt someone's feelings. But sometimes, doing the right thing means making difficult choices. Maya nodded, mulling over his words. So, you think I should talk to Ms. Rodriguez? I think you should trust your instincts, he replied. If it doesn't feel fair to you, it's okay to speak up. And who knows, maybe Ms. Rodriguez will find a way to help without making Kayla feel bad. Maya felt a wave of relief wash over her. Her dad always seemed to know what to say, to give her the courage she needed to follow her heart. Thanks, Daddy. I think I'll talk to Ms. Rodriguez tomorrow. The next day, Maya waited until the end of class to approach Ms. Rodriguez, feeling her heart pound as she rehearsed what she wanted to say. When the classroom emptied, she walked up to her teacher's desk, her hands clasped tightly in front of her. Ms. Rodriguez, can I talk to you about the group project? Ms. Rodriguez looked up, smiling warmly. Of course, Maya. What's on your mind? Maya took a deep breath, choosing her words carefully. It's about Kayla. She hasn't really been doing much of the work, and Emma and I have been trying to help her, but it feels like she's not really interested. I just thought I should let you know. Ms. Rodriguez nodded, listening intently. I appreciate you bringing this to my attention, Maya. It's never easy to speak up about these things, but it's important to be fair. I'll talk to Kayla privately and see if there's a way we can work this out. Maya felt a sense of relief, knowing she'd done the right thing. She thanked Ms. Rodriguez and left the classroom, feeling lighter, as if a weight had been lifted from her shoulders. It wasn't easy to confront difficult situations, but she knew now that honesty and fairness were worth the effort. A few days later, Ms. Rodriguez pulled Maya aside to tell her that she'd had a conversation with Kayla, who admitted she was feeling overwhelmed with some personal problems at home. They'd worked out a plan for her to contribute in smaller ways, and Maya felt a pang of empathy for Kayla. She was glad she'd spoken up, but she also felt grateful that Ms. Rodriguez had found a solution that took everyone's feelings into account. At home that evening, she shared the story with her dad, who listened with pride shining in his eyes. You handled that so well, Maya, he said, ruffling her hair. You trusted your instincts and did what felt right. That takes courage. Maya smiled, feeling a warm glow of pride. I think I learned it from you, Daddy. The rest of the autumn passed in a happy blur, filled with little adventures, cozy nights by the fire, and plenty of laughter. Maya felt like she was growing up, becoming someone who could handle challenges with kindness and bravery. She continued writing in her journal, recording the memories they made, the lessons she learned, and the moments that made her heart feel full. One chilly evening, as they were decorating the house for Halloween, Maya looked at her dad, her heart swelling with gratitude. She thought back to the beginning of the year, to everything they'd been through together, the challenges, the betrayals, and the strength they'd found in each other. Daddy, she said, as they hung up strings of orange lights, I'm really happy. I know things haven't been easy, but I feel like we've come out stronger. Daniel looked down at her, a soft smile on his face. Me too, Maya. I think sometimes the toughest times bring out the best in us, and I'm so grateful I have you by my side. They finished decorating, then settled in with mugs of hot chocolate, laughing as they made plans for Halloween costumes and talked about their upcoming trip to visit family over Thanksgiving. It was a simple, quiet night, but it was filled with a warmth and love that made everything feel right. As Maya lay in bed that night, she thought about how much she'd learned, how far she'd come. She felt a deep sense of peace, knowing that whatever challenges lay ahead, she and her dad would face them together with honesty, love, and trust. And with that comforting thought, she drifted off to sleep, her heart full and her mind at ease, ready for whatever life had in store. As the weeks passed, Maya and her dad embraced the warmth of the holiday season. The air grew crisper, and the trees shed their last leaves, blanketing the ground in shades of orange and brown. Soon, the neighborhood streets were lined with twinkling lights, and every house seemed to be brimming with holiday spirit. This time of year had always been special for Maya, but this year felt different, deeper somehow. After everything they'd been through, she and her dad were closer than ever, and she cherished every moment they shared. One Saturday morning in early December, as they were decorating the Christmas tree, Daniel looked over at Maya with a thoughtful expression. "You know, I was thinking," he began, carefully hanging a delicate glass ornament on a branch. "How would you feel about hosting a small holiday gathering? Just a few close friends and neighbors." Maya's eyes lit up. "Really? That sounds amazing, Daddy. We could bake cookies, put up extra decorations, and maybe even have hot chocolate for everyone." Daniel smiled, his face warm with excitement. "I was hoping you'd like the idea. I think it would be nice to celebrate this year with the people we care about." He paused, his gaze softening. "After everything, it feels good to open our home and share a bit of happiness." Maya nodded, her heart swelling with warmth. It was a perfect idea, a way to bring joy into their home, to celebrate the love and resilience that had carried them through difficult times. She was thrilled at the thought of decorating the house, preparing treats, and filling the rooms with laughter and holiday cheer. Over the next few days, they worked together to plan the gathering. Maya made a list of everything they needed: lights for the front porch, wreaths for the doors, and ingredients for all her favorite holiday cookies. She even decided to try making her mum's old recipe for gingerbread cookies, a tradition her mother had loved. Daniel took her shopping, and together they picked out everything they needed. They spent an entire afternoon hanging garlands and stringing lights across the living room and the porch, laughing as they tangled themselves in twinkling strands and covered every corner of the house with festive decorations. By the time they finished, the house looked like a scene from a holiday movie, cozy and welcoming, with a tree glowing in the corner and candles flickering on the mantel. On the morning of the party, Maya woke up early, brimming with excitement. She slipped into the kitchen where her dad was already up, sipping coffee and looking over a list of final preparations. "Good morning, Peanut," he greeted her, smiling. "Ready for a big day?" Maya grinned, bouncing on her toes. "I'm so ready, I thought I'd start with the cookies. Emma's coming over to help in a little while." "Sounds like a plan," Daniel said, giving her a thumbs up. "I'll finish setting up the table and get the hot chocolate station ready. We've got this." Just then, there was a knock at the door, and Maya ran to answer it. She opened the door to find Emma standing on the porch, bundled up in a coat and scarf, holding a small tin decorated with reindeer. "Surprise!" Emma said, grinning as she held out the tin. "I made peppermint bark last night, and I brought some for the party." Maya's eyes lit up. "Emma, that's perfect. Come on in. We're going to make a mountain of cookies." They spent the next few hours baking, the kitchen filled with the sweet scent of cinnamon, ginger, and chocolate. Maya and Emma rolled out dough, cut it into stars, trees, and gingerbread people, and carefully decorated each one with icing and sprinkles. Every so often they'd sample a cookie, giggling as they tasted their creations and tried to make each one more colorful than the last. When they finally finished, the kitchen counter was covered with plates of cookies, each one a work of art. They arranged them on trays, setting them up on the table alongside a steaming pot of hot chocolate, marshmallows, and mugs for everyone to enjoy. By the time they were done, the house was ready, and Maya felt a surge of pride at how beautiful everything looked. As guests began to arrive, the house filled with laughter, warmth, and the sounds of holiday music. Neighbors, friends, and a few of Daniel's co-workers mingled in the living room, sipping hot chocolate and enjoying the festive treats. Maya felt a glow of happiness as she saw her dad talking and laughing with their guests, his face relaxed and joyful. She knew how much this gathering meant to him, how much it symbolized a new beginning for both of them. Emma stayed by Maya's side, introducing her to neighbors Maya hadn't met before and helping her pass out cookies. They even took turns refilling the hot chocolate pot, chatting with guests and listening to stories about holiday traditions. At one point, Ms. Rodriguez, Maya's teacher, stopped by. She greeted Maya warmly, complimenting her on the beautiful decorations and the delicious cookies. "You've done a wonderful job, Maya," she said, smiling. "Your mum would be so proud of you." Maya felt a lump in her throat, but she smiled, feeling the warmth of Ms. Rodriguez's words. "Thank you, Ms. Rodriguez. It means a lot." As the evening went on, Maya and her dad shared a quiet moment in the kitchen, watching their guests from a distance. Daniel wrapped an arm around her shoulders, his expression filled with pride and gratitude. "You did amazing, Maya," he whispered. "This party wouldn't have happened without you." Maya looked up at him, her heart swelling with love. "We did it together, Daddy. This is our new beginning." They stood there in comfortable silence, soaking in the warmth and joy that filled their home. Maya felt a deep sense of peace, knowing that despite everything they'd been through, they were surrounded by love, friendship, and the simple beauty of togetherness. When the last guest had left and the house had quieted down, they sat together in the living room, the glow of the Christmas tree casting a soft light around them. They were tired but happy, their hearts full as they reflected on the evening. "Do you think we should make this an annual tradition?" Daniel asked, a playful smile on his face. Maya grinned, nodding eagerly. "Definitely. Next year we'll make even more cookies." Daniel laughed, his eyes twinkling. "It's a deal. And maybe next year we can invite even more friends. We'll make it the biggest, happiest celebration yet." They stayed up for a while longer, talking about their favorite moments from the evening, sharing memories and dreams for the future. Maya felt that familiar, comforting warmth that had come to define her relationship with her dad, a feeling of safety, of love, of knowing that they would always have each other. As she drifted off to sleep that night, she thought about everything they'd been through that year. From the pain and betrayal of Sophia's deception to the healing journey they'd embarked on together, she knew that every experience had brought them closer. They'd faced challenges, but they'd come out stronger, filled with a deeper understanding of what it meant to be family. The next morning, as they tidied up the remnants of the party, Maya found herself thinking about the future, about all the adventures and memories that awaited them. She felt a surge of excitement, a renewed sense of purpose. She knew that life wouldn't always be easy, but she was ready for whatever came next, confident in the strength she and her dad shared. Over the following weeks, the holiday season continued to bring moments of joy and connection. Maya and her dad spent quiet evenings together, enjoying simple pleasures like reading by the fire, watching snow fall outside the window, and planning their next family trip. They visited friends, volunteered at a local food drive, and spent Christmas Day sharing gifts and stories, savoring the warmth of the season. On New Year's Eve, they stayed up late, counting down the seconds to midnight, their voices joining the chorus of laughter and cheers from neighboring houses. As fireworks lit up the sky outside, Daniel raised a glass of sparkling cider, his eyes shining with happiness. "To us, Maya," he said, clinking his glass against hers. "To a new year filled with love, joy, and everything we've built together." Maya raised her glass, her heart swelling with pride. "To us, Daddy, and to all the adventures we'll have." They toasted, laughing as they sipped their drinks, the world outside filled with the dazzling light of fireworks. And as Maya looked at her dad, she felt a deep sense of peace and fulfillment, knowing that this was just the beginning of a lifetime of love and happiness. Together, they had weathered the storms, overcome the obstacles, and built a life they were proud of, a life grounded in trust, courage, and an unbreakable bond that would carry them through whatever the future held. With that thought, Maya knew that no matter what, she and her dad would always have each other. And in that moment, as the world welcomed a new year, she felt a surge of gratitude for the family they'd become, a family defined by love, resilience, and a promise to face every adventure together. The new year brought with it a fresh sense of purpose for both Maya and her dad. Winter deepened, and the days grew shorter, filled with the kind of cozy routines that made Maya feel safe and content. She and her dad had found a rhythm in their lives that felt steady, like a soft heartbeat carrying them through each day. One chilly Saturday morning, Daniel brought up an idea that had been on his mind. As they sat at the breakfast table, sipping hot chocolate and munching on toast, he cleared his throat, looking thoughtful. "Maya," he began, glancing over at her with a hesitant smile, "I was thinking, how would you feel about us doing some volunteer work together?" Maya tilted her head, her curiosity piqued. "Volunteer work? Like helping people?" "Exactly," he replied. "I think it would be a wonderful way for us to give back, to help others the way we've been helped by our friends and neighbors. There's a local shelter that organizes food and clothing drives, and I thought maybe we could help out." Maya felt a spark of excitement. "That sounds amazing, Daddy. I'd love to do that with you." The following weekend, they went to the local community center where the shelter held its volunteer events. The space was bustling with people sorting food, folding clothes, and organizing donations. Maya looked around, feeling a sense of awe at the way everyone was working together, each person doing their part to help those in need. They were greeted by Mrs. Jenkins, an older woman with a warm smile and kind eyes. She showed them where they could help, explaining that they could start by sorting donations into different bins. Maya quickly got to work, sifting through boxes of canned goods, carefully checking expiration dates, and placing each item in the appropriate spot. As she worked, Maya felt a sense of purpose, a feeling of connection with the people around her. It was a different kind of joy, quiet and humble, but deeply fulfilling. She glanced over at her dad, who was stacking bags of rice and pasta nearby, and caught his eye. He gave her a thumbs up, his smile filled with pride. Over the next few weeks, volunteering became part of their routine. Every Saturday morning, they would head to the community center, where they joined a growing group of friends and neighbors, all united in their desire to make a difference. Maya became friends with some of the other kids who volunteered, and she especially enjoyed chatting with Mrs. Jenkins, who would always share funny stories from her own childhood. One day, as they were working side by side, Mrs. Jenkins shared something that struck a chord with Maya. "You know, Maya," she said, her voice soft, "helping others isn't just about giving them food or clothes. It's about showing them that they're not alone, that there are people who care. Sometimes that's the most important gift you can give." Maya nodded, her heart filling with warmth. She thought about how she and her dad had leaned on each other, on their friends, and on their neighbors when things had been difficult. She realized that their own journey had taught her the value of community, of kindness, and of being there for others. One Saturday, as they were finishing up at the community center, Mrs. Jenkins pulled Maya aside, handing her a small envelope. "This is for you and your dad," she said, smiling. "Just a little something from all of us here to thank you for all the hard work you've been doing." Maya opened the envelope, her eyes widening as she saw a card inside with a handwritten note from the volunteers, thanking them for their dedication and kindness. Her heart swelled with gratitude as she read each message, feeling a warmth that went beyond words. When she showed the card to her dad, his eyes misted slightly, and he pulled her into a hug. "You know, Maya, this is what it's all about, being there for each other, helping people the way we've been helped. I'm so proud of you." They continued volunteering throughout the winter, each week deepening Maya's appreciation for the simple beauty of giving. It became more than just a Saturday activity. It became a way of life, a reminder of the love and resilience that had carried them through difficult times. As winter gradually gave way to spring, Maya felt herself growing, both in her understanding of the world and in her relationship with her dad. She'd faced challenges, learned difficult lessons, and discovered the strength that came from standing up for what she believed in. And through it all, her dad had been there, guiding her, supporting her, and teaching her what it meant to love unconditionally. One sunny afternoon, as they were taking a walk in the park, Daniel turned to her, his face thoughtful. "You know, Maya, I was thinking, maybe we should do something special to celebrate how far we've come." Maya looked up at him, her curiosity piqued. "Like what?" "How about a family project?" he suggested, a glint of excitement in his eyes. "Something we can work on together to give back to the community in our own way." Maya's eyes lit up. Like starting a garden? Or maybe organizing a neighborhood event?" "Both great ideas," Daniel replied, nodding. "But I was thinking we could start small, maybe create a little free library in our yard, a place where people can take a book or leave a book, a way to share stories with everyone in the neighborhood." Maya loved the idea instantly. She'd always been an avid reader, and the thought of creating a library for their neighbors filled her with excitement. "Yes, let's do it. We can make it look nice, maybe paint it and add some decorations." They spent the next few weekends gathering supplies, researching little free libraries, and designing the perfect structure. Maya and her dad built a small wooden box with a glass door, painting it a cheerful shade of blue and decorating it with colorful patterns and inspirational quotes. They stocked it with some of their own books, as well as a few they'd found at second-hand stores, creating a mix of stories for kids and adults alike. On the day they finally set it up in their front yard, a small group of neighbors gathered to celebrate the new addition. Emma came with her family, along with Mrs. Jenkins and a few of the friends they'd made at the community center. Everyone took turns placing a book in the library, each title adding a new layer to the collection. Maya felt a sense of pride as she watched her neighbors browse the books, chatting and laughing as they shared their favorite stories. It was more than just a library. It was a gathering place, a symbol of the community they'd helped build, and a reminder of the kindness that had brought them all together. That evening, as she and her dad sat on the porch, watching the sunset, Maya felt a deep sense of contentment. She knew that this was just the beginning of a lifetime of giving, of finding ways to help and connect with others. She looked over at her dad, her heart swelling with gratitude. "You know, Daddy," she said softly, "this has been the best year of my life." Daniel looked at her, his eyes shining with pride. "Mine too, Maya, and it's all because of you." They sat in comfortable silence, watching as the last rays of sunlight dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over their yard. The little free library stood proudly, a beacon of hope and kindness, a testament to the journey they'd taken together. As darkness fell and the stars appeared, Maya thought about everything they'd been through, everything they'd built. She knew that life would bring more challenges, that there would be ups and downs, but she also knew that they would face them together. They had created something beautiful, something lasting, a bond that would carry them through whatever the future held. And with that thought, Maya felt a quiet joy settle over her, a feeling of peace that filled her heart and reminded her that family was more than just the people you were born with. It was the people you chose to love, the people who stood by you, who lifted you up, and who made the world a brighter place. As the seasons shifted once more and summer began to warm the world around them, Maya and her dad found themselves reflecting on all that had changed over the past year. It was a quiet Sunday morning, and the two of them were seated on the porch, a routine they had come to cherish. Daniel was sipping coffee while Maya wrote in her journal, filling in the final pages with memories and thoughts that had shaped her in ways she could only begin to describe. "Do you think we'll ever move, Daddy?" Maya asked suddenly, looking up from her journal. Daniel raised an eyebrow, clearly surprised by the question. "Move? I hadn't thought about it. Do you want to move?" Maya thought for a moment, glancing around at the familiar yard, the little free library, and the neighborhood she had grown up in. She shook her head. "No, I love it here. It feels like this is where we belong." Daniel smiled, looking relieved. "Me too. There's something special about a place that holds so many memories. It's where we've laughed, cried, and rebuilt our lives together." He paused, glancing over at the garden where a small patch of flowers was blooming. "It's where your mom's memory still lives too." They sat in silence for a moment, each lost in thought. For Maya, the past year felt like a lifetime of change, a journey from confusion and hurt to peace and happiness. She had learned so much about herself, about her father, and about the strength of family. And now, with summer stretching before them, she felt ready to embrace the future, whatever it might hold. Later that day, as the sun climbed higher and the sounds of the neighborhood filled the air, they decided to go for a walk. They strolled down their familiar street, greeting neighbors, some of whom were borrowing or returning books from the little free library. Mrs. Jenkins waved from her garden, her face lighting up as she saw them. "Daniel, Maya," she called, walking over to the fence. "You two are just in time. I've got a few fresh tomatoes if you'd like some." Maya's eyes sparkled with excitement. "Yes, please, Mrs. Jenkins. I'll make a salad with them for dinner." Mrs. Jenkins handed over a small basket of tomatoes, her smile warm and inviting. "I just wanted to thank you too for all you've done at the community center. You know, it's people like you who make this neighborhood feel like a true home." Maya felt a glow of pride as she looked up at her dad. "We're so lucky to have friends like you, Mrs. Jenkins," she said sincerely. As they continued their walk, Maya couldn't help but think about the way their lives had changed, how, through the trials they had faced, they had found something stronger and more lasting than any hardship. They walked to the edge of the park, sitting together on a bench overlooking the small lake where they'd spent so many afternoons over the years. "You know," Daniel said, breaking the comfortable silence, "I think your mum would be proud of us, proud of the way we've built our lives together." Maya looked up at him, feeling a lump rise in her throat. "I think she'd be proud of you, Daddy. You've always been there for me, no matter what. And I know it hasn't always been easy." He smiled, pulling her into a gentle hug. "It's never been easy, Maya. but it's always been worth it. Every single moment. They sat there, the soft breeze rustling through the trees, the world around them buzzing with life. Maya felt a deep sense of gratitude settle over her. She thought about all the memories they'd made, the little moments that had come together to form something unbreakable, something beautiful. As they returned home, Maya had an idea. She raced ahead, running up to her room and grabbing her journal, the pages filled with memories, stories, and dreams. She came back down, a shy smile on her face. "Daddy, I want you to read this," she said, holding out the journal. Daniel looked at her, surprised. "Are you sure? This is your special book?" Maya nodded, feeling a mix of nervousness and excitement. "Yes. I want you to see everything I've written. It's our story." Daniel took the journal, his eyes softening as he flipped through the pages. He read the words carefully, sometimes smiling, sometimes looking pensive as he relived their shared memories through her words. He stopped on a page where she had written about their family motto, one she'd created herself in the wake of their journey together. Family means choosing to be there, to lift each other up, no matter what. When he finished, he looked up at her, his expression filled with emotion. "Maya, this is beautiful. Thank you for sharing this with me. It's more than I ever could have imagined." She felt a rush of happiness as he pulled her into a hug, the kind of hug that made her feel safe, loved, and completely understood. She knew that this was what family meant, the quiet moments, the shared dreams, the promises they'd made to each other through every challenge. That evening, as they prepared dinner together with Mrs. Jenkins's tomatoes, Maya felt a warmth in her heart, a certainty that she and her dad had found something lasting. They laughed as they cooked, telling stories and making plans for the summer ahead, hikes, library trips, maybe even another family vacation. After dinner, they went back to the porch, looking out over their neighborhood as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Maya leaned her head on her dad's shoulder, feeling completely at peace. "Daddy," she said quietly, do you think life will always feel this way?" Daniel chuckled softly. "I hope so, sweetheart. But even if things change, I know we'll always be there for each other. That's what matters most." They sat there together, watching as the stars began to appear, one by one, filling the sky with a quiet, gentle light. In that moment, Maya felt a sense of completeness, a knowledge that she and her dad had created something truly special, a home, a life filled with love, and a future they would face together. And as the night deepened, she knew that whatever the future held, they would face it side by side, with the courage, trust, and love that had carried them through everything before.